And it's a particularly, I think, difficult time to address the Israeli-Palestine complex of issues. Let me just say a few things as in a preliminary way, as a background for the main substance of what I will try to talk about. We're at a time when the realities of political life in the Middle East are such to have diverted attention from the unresolved Palestinian struggle for fundamental rights. The attention is focused now, for understandable reasons, on ISIS, the threat it poses, the kinds of terrorist incidents that have been occurring outside the Middle East, and the continuing civil war in Syria. All of these developments make it extremely difficult to give to the Palestinian situation the attention that it deserves. But at the same time, we must appreciate that for the Palestinian people living under occupation or living in refugee camps in neighboring countries, their daily ordeal of suffering is unimaginably severe and has continued over the decades. If you have to have witnessed it to have any sense of the severity of what that means to grow up in an atmosphere created by the refugee camps or the vulnerabilities and statelessness that is associated with living under occupation or in Gaza in a situation of prolonged captivity. There is also a sense that hasn't really existed to nearly the same degree of clarity before, that the diplomatic effort to resolve the conflict, to create the conditions for a sustainable peace, has failed, that it has reached a dead end. The process that was perhaps falsely labeled the peace process that arose out of the Oslo framework of principles that had been agreed upon in 1993, was something that was flawed from the outset.
I'm going to start where you ended. You gave a very compelling argument that there's a pattern in history, especially since World War II, of the underdog who has right on their side winning. Why can't people in power see that?
I think that's a very important issue that I've thought about a lot. And I think the simplistic but still instructive answer is because our bureaucracy and our media have become so militarized over the course of this period since the end of World War II and subsequent decades, that it's both impolitic and unnatural to think outside the military box. And so we keep reinventing how to win these conflicts that are occurring in the global south. And if you notice the response to Syria and to ISIS or to the Paris attacks, it's always one of let's do more militarily. There's very little freedom of the political imagination to consider non-military ways of resolving conflict. And that's partly because the military budget has remained so high. It's partly because the think tanks in Washington are very capable of sustaining this kind of ideological outlook. I had as a student some years ago David Petraeus, who made his reputation by reinventing counterinsurgency warfare. That is, trying to say what happened in Vietnam was an anomaly and that we could fix it by treating the civilian population of the target society in a more understanding way, and by shifting our tactics using new technologies, drones being the most dramatic example, and finding ways to make the military instruments successful and effective as part of the global domination strategy being pursued by Washington.